Welcome everybody, welcome to the first ever members only tutorial for Tate Englund Yoga channel. I'm extremely excited about this new members program. It's going to allow me to create fun content and in a little bit different of a format, in the sense of I can get a little bit deeper into context because the members are taking their practice to a point that they want to learn a little bit more than what the average YouTube video can give them. So that's my goal to this. And so this one, it's pretty straightforward, this tutorial. I want to talk about why leg activation is so critical for inversions like Pincha mayurasana and handstand, so forearm balance handstand. I think it often gets overlooked. People get too concerned with, are my shoulders strong enough and what's my core doing? I would say your legs are just as important as shoulders, the shoulder structure, the shoulder strength, if not maybe just a tiny bit more in terms of helping you get up and stay balanced. Now you still need the shoulder girdle to be strong, stable, to be able to hold the weight. But in terms of balancing, the actual act of balancing, the legs might just be the most important part. If not, it's like 1B, right? Shoulder girdle strength, shoulder alignment, and then 1B would be leg strength. Core, really important in everything we do, less important in terms of inversions. When I'm in a handstand or forearm balance, I rarely ever in my brain go, what is my core doing right now? And there's reasons for it. Biggest thing is when we're going into inversions is we need to be able to work quad and hamstring together, right? So when we work quad and hamstring together, and I'll just kind of show it in kind of a half splits. What we're talking about is we want this hamstring to be working, right? So it's contracting. What it's trying to do is bend the knee. And then when the quad is engaged, its action is trying to straighten out the knee. So then we have this life force or this clamp on our leg. And what that does is when these are firing, right? And when the whole leg and the outer leg and we're squeezing inner thighs in towards each other, what happens here is that the leg muscles, and you can see it here, when my knee is bent, I can freely just kind of move my pelvis. When my leg is straight and everything is active, it's a lot harder for me to move just the hips by themselves, right? It would be the same thing in, let's just see here, let's come into Sphinx, right? Come into Sphinx with me. I'm going to kind of show this, and I want to work this together just so we understand the relationship of legs and the hamstring and quad and why it's important. We need to be able to fire both at the same time, being very strong when we're working inversions. So come into Sphinx pose, elbows underneath shoulders, grip with your fingers, pull your elbows back, right? Activate the shoulders. But notice the front of your hips, right? Notice the hip points against the mat or against the floor below you. Without increasing the pressure, most of the time when we lift the right leg, it's going to shift it into the left. Without increasing the pressure in either one, from the back of your right leg, lift your right leg off the floor. So you're going to feel your hamstring contract. Now engage your right quad. And lift your right leg as high as you can. And feel where you feel the sensation. Most of it, 95% of that sensation is going to be in the hamstring and the glute. Right, and you can feel it's not allowing. A lot of people have a lot of mobility in the low back, and you're not feeling a whole lot of sensation in your low back other than what Sphinx is doing anyways. Now bend your right knee, flex your foot, and lift your right foot straight up toward the ceiling. And you're going to feel it shifts this up into the glute and a little bit more into the low back. So when the knee is bent, the hips move and put a lot more mobility into the low back. Now keep that leg lifted, re-straighten out your right leg. This is important. Being able to lift the leg and keep it straight is critical to keeping the energy flowing. And as you do this, feel the energy in that right leg. Or you can feel it. It runs from the hip all the way through the toes. And then go ahead and set that down. We'll do it on the left side. From your left hamstring, without increasing the pressure in your right hip or in both hips. Just lift your left leg off the floor. Right, you can feel it. Right, you keep lifting from the hamstring, it's going to try to bend the knee. Now engage your quad to straighten, like feel that energy. Now lift your left leg up and feel. It stays in the hamstring and a little bit in the glute. Right, now bend your right knee, flex your foot. Lift your left heel straight up toward the center. Now feel it. It's mainly in the glute. It's a lot in the low back. Right, deep breath in. Deep breath out, and then keep the knee lifted, re-straighten the leg out, right? Feel that energy. Feel how powerful and strong that leg is when we do this. When the hamstring and quad are working, spread your toes, feel that. And then go ahead and set it down. Right, so you feel that, right? You can feel the energy coming out, right, of the leg. I'm going to show it in Pincha mayurasana. And it's so critical why whenever I'm teaching Pincha mayurasana, whenever I'm teaching handstand, I 99% with students talk about finding a L shape in the legs or split shape, whatever is easier for you. What I'm trying to get you to do is separate your legs as far as possible. But when the knees are bent, the hips move. And we just saw that the hips bent, and it allows for a lot of mobility in the low back. And a lot of yoga practitioners who are trying to get handstand, who are trying to get Pincha mayurasana, have a lot of movement in their low back. And they tend to struggle with their hips kind of moving too far, right, in the balance. Right? It creates too much of a back bend. So as I come into Pincha mayurasana, right, I'm going to lift from my back leg, engage my quad. So you can feel already, right, by finding that same shape we found in Sphinx, I feel that energy just carrying out. I'm going to lift my heel, bend my knee, right, and then I'm going to come up and I'm finding this, right, I'm finding this split shape forearm balance, right? If my knees bend, you can see my hips move. When my legs are straight, my hips don't. Knees bend, hips have some movement. Legs straight, they don't. I have all the muscles and I'm going to squeeze my inner thighs in towards each other. But I'm trying to find this split shape. I'm getting my hamstring and my quads working together, right? And then come all the way down. What it does is it creates kind of a brace around the hip joint when the legs are extremely active. When you have quad and hamstring clamping down, it has a brace kind of around the hips, the legs, the core, all working to keep the pelvis stable, right? When the knees bend, the hips move, right? But when the leg is straight, right? Let me ask you a question. Can I get more kick forward or kick up with my knee bent? I would say yes, I can. But we just experienced in Sphinx pose that the momentum then usually starts to get into the low back, not the legs and the hamstrings, which then causes the pelvis to move too far into a back bend. And let me try showing that with a handstand, right? As I come up, if I bend my knee, right, you can see it just starts to automatically create that back bend. Here, look, right? But if I come up with the legs straight, I'm here, right? I'm here, my pelvis isn't moving. When the back bend starts to happen, a deep back bend in forearm balance and in handstand, you go too far. You're not stable, right? There's too much momentum. What we want to do is slow down the momentum, but keep the same amount of energy. And by keeping the leg straight, hamstring active, we're able to extend the leg up. Another example, right, and I'm not BSing you when I do this, right, is if I bend my knee, I can really just then start to crank back into this back bend. It creates a lot more mobility into the pelvis when the knee is bent, right? Because when I'm just using the hamstring, quads turn off, allows the hip flexors to move, allows the hips to move, right, and we go. When I'm here, and I keep the legs straight, and I lift my leg up, this is my back bend. And I'm not lying to you right now. You can experience this on your own. Keeping the leg straight, left quad, active. Just start to try to take this into a back bend, right? It's not really there, right? If I bend my knee, boom, here, right? If I try to straighten my leg out, and I go back, I'm about here, right? So the knee bend in an inversion causes there to be too much movement in the pelvis and in the low back. That is why being able to control your quad and your hamstring at the same time for balancing upside down, right? Maybe not getting up, right? You're gonna take a step back. If you decide, all right, I'm no longer gonna bend my knee, I'm here. I'm then going to send my leg up, right? I may not get up quite as high the first couple times, right? But as soon as my knees bend, right, the hips move. Legs straight, I'm stable. Knees bend, my pelvis is moving, I can feel my low back, but I'm here. And then when I'm comfortable, I bring my legs together, right? Legs, quad, and hamstring, being able to activate those at the same time is so crucial to maintaining your handstand and your Pincha mayurasana. way more important than what's going on right here, in my opinion. Right? Shoulder strength, right? We need everything we need there. But legs, hamstrings get overlooked all the time. So anytime you're in a pose, right? You're in a supported warrior three, right? Are we just kind of here? Well, we can be if you want to be, but if you're trying to get your handstand or your pincha mayurasana or even your headstand, engage that quad, straighten out the leg, lift the left hamstring as high as you can. If we're in half moon, are we just kind of here, right? No, we're engaging the quad, lifting from the out hip. We're trying to work all the muscles of the leg together. If we're in revolved half moon, are we just kind of here? Only unless we don't want to get a handstand. If we want to stick our handstand or a form balance, we need to engage the heck out of that left quad. Feel your leg straighten out, and then lift your left hamstring up toward the ceiling. Right, so anytime we're lifting the leg, we want to make sure that the quad and hamstring are firing together if we're working a handstand. If we just want to target hamstring and glute, perfectly fine to do some drills where we're here, right? But if we're working on developing the ability to do a handstand or form bounce, we need to be able to engage our quad and our hamstring at the same time and then be able to lift the leg. Because as I lift into my handstand, as you can see, I need my glute and my hamstring here to be able to lift the leg up, right? I have nothing else to get up there with than my leg. My core isn't going to necessarily do a whole lot to get my leg up. It's going to help get the hips up, but it's not going to help to get the leg up. So I need to be able to lift the leg from the hamstring, but as we've seen, I do not want the knee to bend unless I'm doing something else on purpose, right? I don't want the knee to bend, especially the top leg knee, if I'm trying to maintain this, I want to call it a corset, but this kind of brace around the pelvis from keeping it moving, right? If I can keep my legs straight, my pelvis stays neutral. If my knees bend, I have no control over my pelvis to find it. So that is why I think this is such a crucial, overlooked part of the handstand and forearm balance preparation and control. Hamstring and glute working together, hamstring then lifting. So the hamstring is able to lift without bending the knee because the quad is active, right? So try it out. If you're like, Tate, how do I know if my knees are, I feel like my legs are straight. Videotape yourself. I cannot tell you enough when you're trying to work inversions, when you're trying to work arm balances, the more you can videotape yourself, right, the more you learn. That's how I learn. It's how I go, because I don't always have my teacher's eyes to go, oh, Tate, your leg is bent. I don't have those all the time. But what I do have is I have my phone with me 99% of the time. I can just set it up. Doesn't need to be Instagram ready or YouTube ready or Facebook. It's just there for my own self-prep. Why do professional athletes watch film, right? They watch film to get better. Same thing if you're trying to do something that's very hard, like forearm balance, like handstand, videotape yourself to know. So then when you kick up, you might go, oh, my leg is bent. That's what it feels like when my leg is bent. And then maybe, oh, that time it was a lot straighter. What did it feel like when it was a lot straighter? Another role for the, just real quick that we can talk about. When the foot is bent, right? Or when the foot is flexed when you're upside down, it takes a little bit of the back bend out. When the foot is pointed, it creates a little bit more back bend, but it allows a little bit more energy to come up. So what I always talk about is as I kick up, right? I talk to my people, point your foot, carry the energy, and then once you're up, maybe play with flexing the feet to see if you can take a little bit of that out, right? So playing around with that can also be something to try, right? Practice, legs straight, quad and hamstring. Do the Sphinx work, right, that we did before. You can even do this standing balancing here, where you're just kind of in a straight leg and it's just lifting. Maybe it's resistance bands between your legs, right? When you're working airplane, warrior threes, revolved half moons, we want that leg to be as straight as possible. When you're coming from downward facing dog, do a three-legged dog, right? We're not just here. Be here and lift the hamstring straight up toward the ceiling, right? When we're in a standing split, maybe we're not handstanding today, but we're engaging that left quad, lifting the left hamstring up, right? So try those out. Remember when you're in a handstand, when you're in a forearm bounce, keep the legs as straight as possible while using the hamstring to lift. So we have that clamp, we have that brace around the pelvis, around the legs, to keep our hips from moving and creating too much of a back bend. Right, try it out. Let me know what you think. Namaste.